All right, we've done our DA with 80. We're feather edging out, trying to really smooth out those layers, get an etch for the filler to lock into, get it good and clean. Now we've blown out the holes, want to make sure there isn't any debris like in little holes and crevices and whatnot. Go back in with a nice wax grease remover to get any kind of that type of contaminant out. Once you're at that point, you're pretty much ready for some filler. So Byrd's mixing that up. We'll be ready to rock.
Yeah, now you got two options. You've got your standard plastic filler, sort of a talc based. It's it's a little heavier and thicker to work with, but it's nice and soft, so you can work it off pretty quick with, like a cheese grater or your sandpaper. Now it's a two-part mix, so depending on temperature and the directions that come with your particular brand, get yourself a nice couple beads, and you're going to start mixing that up. As soon as it starts to basically mix, it's going to catalyze, it's going to start getting hard, so you don't want to play around with it for too long. Now you can use something called a glaze. Now a glaze you'll use probably after you've worked some of the filler in. This plastic filler, it's thinner, it's a polyester, kind of like resin when you're working with fiberglass. But it's good for filling in those pinholes where this is just a little more bulky and can't quite get in those really tiny scratches and things like that. Let me get this nice and mixed up so I get a good uniform color.
Okay, we've got this spread looking good. Try to get some of these pinholes in. Now the first thing I like to do is get in with that first coat, really push it in well. What you're doing is getting in all those little crevices, making sure you're going to have good adhesion, get inside all of it. That's going to be kind of your first step. Then what I like to do is come back. Now you're going to kind of get the meat of your actual fill. Starting with less fill out to where the edge is, where you've done your feather edging, working your way in, and just get it spread even. There's no real perfect scenario here. Obviously, you're just trying to put in as least amount possible. Keep your pinholes down to a minimum. Get this kind of spread in. So I'm going to let this dry for about 10 minutes or so, and then we'll be ready for the cheese grater. Okay, I'm sanding with 36 grit, and we've already previously done a cheese grating just to knock off the high edges. Now you don't want to go too far with that because you can end up digging grooves in that you're going to have to fill later. Now what I'm trying to do is use a crosshatch pattern, back and forth with a nice block. And you want to go from a thin area here where you're feather edging, because that's the thinnest amount of filler, and work your way in, gradually getting yourself into where the most of your damage is going to be and where there's going to be more filler. So now I've got the flat areas kind of roughed in. I'm going to need kind of a round block. You got something back there for this inside curve?
We got more rounded.
That'll do.
We've got every shape you can think of. I'm playing around with Brian's little box of goodies here. And you got your standard sanding block, but you got ways to be creative. Different objects, shapes, whether they're wooden and hard or they got a little bit of compliance to them. But my favorite one digging around is the phone book.
That is a good one. Now it actually works, man. Like 37 Ford or VW or these big round fenders, a Porsche. Put a whole piece of sandpaper on there. You can really get it.
You can get it to shape kind of the way you want it. Yeah, it makes sense. I like it.
Whatever works.